gonna play with robots, gonna play with robots, gonna play with... Whoa!
Dan, did you do this?
Huh?
Man, I'm in a doozy of a pickle. It's gonna take me a while to review this game.
Talking to me? I'm not sure why you're telling me this.
I don't know why either. Why don't I just start reviewing the game?
SpongeBob SquarePants. What a phenomenon in the cartoon industry. SpongeBob easily rose to becoming one of the most renowned cartoons ever to be conceived. With a relatable cast with many wacky scenarios and moments, the show is guaranteed to hit it big. And when anything hits it big, corporations look at what they have and immediately slam their properties to a cheap developer to create a cash grab to make a quick buck. SpongeBob is certainly no stranger to the video game industry. He spurts more video games than I can count on my whole two hands. I find myself waking up on top of a SpongeBob game here and there, and that's how many games there are of this yellow sponge. SpongeBob has a plethora of video games out there, with a few of them I've even talked about previously. Were they good? Mostly not. But we got a few gems in the rough, like Lights, Camera, Pants, and Truth or Square.
But there's really only one game most people talk about these days.
When talking about a faithful video game adaptation of a major franchise, this game is always the one that's thrown on top of the pile as crowning king. With SpongeBob bursting into the world with fast success, Nickelodeon knew they needed to capitalize on that. That brought us multiple merchandise, clothing, toothbrushes, tampons, and of course, video games! The first ever game that had SpongeBob starring in it wasn't actually a SpongeBob game, but a racer on the PlayStation 1 called Nicktoons Racing, which is actually a pretty cool PlayStation 1 racer. Maybe I should talk about it sometime. But our first official SpongeBob game was SuperSponge for the PlayStation 1, and you can tell this wasn't the SpongeBob game people wanted. It is a 2D platformer with not much to offer and challenge. But it wasn't bad, it just wasn't the SpongeBob game that fans wanted. We wanted a whole 3D world to explore and jump around in.
I regret the prior statement.
Then we got this mess. This game is such a mess. I made a whole video already on it. I think I was a little too hard on the game in my initial review though. The game is fully voice acted by all the original actors and it still has some decently enjoyable moments, even if some of them are because of how bad the game looks.
Revenge of the Flying Dutchman left many SpongeBob fans quite disappointed for very understandable reasons. That's why when this game came to the scene, I immediately kicked it out of the way. Like it was just going to be terrible like the last one, right? And I'm assuming that's why I didn't kick off immediately. Just like the kid in the deep end of the pool who thought he would be able to swim there.
Battle for Bikini Bottom was where SpongeBob game standards were thrown right through the roof. This game is known as the best SpongeBob game, and even the best game in association with any major work in the film media industry. With THQ already working with some of Nick's properties before, like TAC, they figured why not stick with the same people and asked THQ to create a new SpongeBob game for the Xbox, PlayStation 2, and Gamecube. THQ then went and threw this game over to Heavy Iron Studios. Heavy Iron spent multiple long days slamming this game with so much care and passion, which shows in the final product more than ever. This game is so good. I literally ran it into the ground as a child. This copy right here for the Gamecube was my personal copy from when I was a kid. I remember chucking this game into my Gamecube and playing it for hours on end. What drew me to this game? Yeah, that's kinda obvious. I would play anything as a kid, but what kept me coming back to this game as an adult? Still not wrong.
Are you ready, kids?
Aye, aye, Captain!
Battle for Bikini Bottom begins with Plankton here, who recently created this device called the Duplicatotron 3000. This device was supposed to create a horde of obedient robots to listen to Plankton's commands, but Plankton forgot to flip the switch from don't obey to obey. I forgot to flip my switch in my car from don't obey to obey, and look at me now.
I got to flip the switch to obey.
Am I supposed to believe the guy that literally created a robot AI wife created a don't obey switch into his blueprint plans? Sure, okay.
Oh, wait! But I'm your master! I made you! No! Oh, my good China!
While Plankton is dealing with this fiasco, we move on to SpongeBob and Patrick playing robots and racehorses. But they soon grow tired of these figures and wish that they had actual robots to play with. So they put one of the robot toys into Patrick's magic wishing shell and say the magic word.
Okay?
Patrick, aren't we going to say the magic wishing words?
You already did!
So, okay is the magic wishing word?
The next morning, SpongeBob wakes up excited to play with his new robot toys, to find his house absolutely destroyed. And no, SpongeBob, there's no way Gary could have done this. This is where we first get to learn how the game will control and feel, and damn, this game feels really good. SpongeBob is really fluid in how he moves and gets around the areas. It feels nice. And then throughout the game, we'll separate into 3 different characters, SpongeBob, Patrick, and Sandy, each offering a different way to traverse a level or course, with SpongeBob being the only one you can control in the main hub, which is just okay. The overall functionality behind the hub is like any other hub in any other platforming game. It's fine, it functions, but the hub mainly misses its mark with the overall aesthetic relating to the show. The first area of the hub is actually really damn solid. It faithfully recreates the area we are so familiar with. But once we progress onto the second of 3 parts of the hub, it starts to slip. The Shady Shoals isn't supposed to be anywhere near Sandy's Tree Dome, and just look at Sandy's Tree Dome itself. It isn't supposed to be anywhere near another building, and this contains Sandy's treehouse? That's like saying I can fit my Super Nintendo into my wallet. And the Krusty Krab and Chub Bucket here aren't supposed to be this close. I understand that this was meant to keep the hub easily accessible to travel around and access levels, but it doesn't mean that it isn't inaccurate to the show. But this really doesn't harm the game in any sort of way. I'm just too much of a SpongeBob fanatic here. Like, have you seen my game collection for SpongeBob here? I absolutely love this yellow sponge, and I just love the potential nods and references that a game relating to SpongeBob could bring. But to any casual player of this game, and not too huge into SpongeBob, they're not really going to notice this. Though, most people will recognize the voice change in both Mermaid Man and Krabs here.
SpongeBob, this flapping robot crisis is making the Krusty Krab lose money like a sinking ship. No. I think it had something to do with massaging my feet.
They don't sound anything like their original voice actors. Like, you can't tell me this sounds anywhere near close to Clancy Brown here. But outside of them though, all voice actors reprise their roles for this game. The entire game is rich with dialogues and interaction between the characters from the show, and hell, they brought back Bubble Buddy, man!
Just dropped by to give you a bubble hand.
Bubble Buddy. Trying to steal the Krabby Patty formula again, eh, Plankton? Well, you won't get away with it.
I've got bigger fish to fry. I've got to figure out how to regain control of the chum bucket from those robots.
Hey Dan, where are you? I got some wieners to roast. But a game's a game, and a game needs to have good controls. And a good game needs to have good controls. So how does the Bob hold up here?
This game controls amazingly well for a game based on such a huge franchise. This game is a breath of fresh air compared to the shitload of horrible games based on movies, shows, cartoons, and any sort of media following as such. The controls are your standard for a platformer. A jumps, B attacks, Y does this bubble bash attack where it's upwards, and then pressing X in the air will slam him down with these bubble boots. While playing the game, you'll be collecting shiny objects and golden spatulas. These are your stars and coins in this case, with the shiny objects actually acting a little more closely to the coin properties from Super Mario Odyssey. Shiny objects are everywhere in the game, and easily give you incentive to explore every corner and crevice in the entirety of the game. I never felt unrewarded for going off the beaten path, as there was always a shiny object at the end of said path, which was really satisfying. You can use these objects to open up these clams, which are sometimes mandatory, but mostly just to take you to a side mission to get another golden spatula or sock. And before I forget, we also have Patrick's whole sock collection to go and get. Do you ever open up your drawer and freak out when all your socks are gone? We can't leave Patrick in this situation. These socks are pretty enjoyable most of the time to actually go and find, being hidden in more crevices, driving forward the amount Heavy Iron wants you to explore their levels. Though, they can sometimes get a little too carried away with this.
Oh, welcome to the next episode of Game Hunt. Let's find our next contestant. You there.
Oh, hey, hi.
Hey, how would you like to be on my game show?
Oh, cool. What's your game show?
Oh, you just get to go find Battle for Bikini Bottom out there in the wilderness.
The wilderness? Oh,
The wilderness.
Really? Cool. Well, what's the reward?
You find it, you bring it back here, you get a reward. You won't know until you bring it back, though. Keep going.
All right. This is not the right one, no. Okay, game, but not the one I'm looking for. Get that out of here. That's a bad game. That's just right out in the open. No. Oh, this is pretty good, but not the one I need. Oh. Out of here. You definitely get out of here. There it is. I found it. Oh,
Is it alright?
it definitely is. Spider-Man! I love Spider-Man! Oh man, that's awesome!
Ready for your next challenge?
Another
Get
challenge?
back out there and find more games. You bring them all back, you got an even bigger reward.
What am I waiting for?
Go, go, go!
A few moments later.
Found the rest of them. What do I get?
This specific sock in Sand Mountain is so dumb. I remember going down this hill many times trying to get these sandmen all across the course. I remember trying so hard, but I would always keep dying, and then they would always respawn afterwards. I bit my controller to all hell over this. Like I said though, these frustrating socks are few and far in between to actually throw a fit over. Most of the socks are actually quite enjoyable to go and collect. These socks actually kind of act entirely like the blue coins from Super Mario Sunshine, where going and trading in 10 coins grants you a shine, and while here, 10 socks will get you a spatula. The more spatulas you gain throughout the game, the more levels that will be unlocked, each being a location from the show, like Goo Lagoon, Downtown Bikini Bottom, Rock Bottom, Kelp Forest, all to help you move forward to getting more spatulas. Unlocking these courses help you to progress towards the Chum Bucket, the ending point in the game. Spatulas require many different ways to collect them, like using these bungees, getting to a certain point in a level, completing a challenge, collecting sub-collectibles for the levels themselves, and completing the entire level by completing its major task or just getting to the end of it. Sometimes, you'll even have to have the assistance from Patrick and Sandy to complete getting all these socks and spatulas. Every character plays different from each other in some major or minor ways. Spongebob is the only character with an upward attack and can sneak past these sleepy robots. Patrick can slam down and stun enemies as well as pick up objects like the throw fruits and the stun enemies as I mentioned before. And then Sandy can use her lasso to target on enemies from a distance and can also use it to hover and swing in the air. Spongebob is also the only character that can gain more than one move. While playing the game and getting all these spatulas, you will encounter 3 bosses, all robot versions of the 3 playable characters in the game, with the first one being the Sandy robot fight, and this is pretty disappointing. The idea is good, like milk, but it is just as bad as milk. This boss fight just takes way too long to get going, just like my life here.
go, damn it!
I feel like I'm just sitting here half the time waiting for her to finish her motions for an entire minute to finally get in that one hit and just to repeat that minute all over again. It just takes way too long. It would have been fine if the fight was overall sped up. It would have been much better. Only if they remade the game to be able to do that. The next one is RoboPat here, who again takes a little too long to do his battle animations. But at least there's a little bit more interactivity with his attacks, having to avoid, never mind. Yeah, you can literally just sit over here on this platform and basically avoid all of his first phase attacks. Then in the second phase, you can stall on these swings here to avoid all of his second phase attacks. And then repeat what you did in the first stage with Spongebob again, and you can avoid all his attacks in the third phase. Then all you have to do is hit him with your Bubble Bowl attack. Oh yeah, like I mentioned before, as you defeat the bosses here, you gain 2 new abilities for SpongeBob to use going forward. The first one you gain is the Bubble Bowl. This gives you the ability to bowl from a distance to hit objects, buttons, and even the specific gears for the Bubble Bowl itself. And then after the Robobot fight here, you get to gain the Cruise Bubble. This gives you a projectile to be able to hit objects that are too high for SpongeBob to reach with the Bubble Bowl attack or just himself, like the buttons on the side of the Chum Bucket here. Both of these abilities are actually pretty solid upgrades to SpongeBob's overall kit, and are used a decent amount throughout the rest of the game, and you even have to go back to past socks and spatulas in order to get them with these new abilities. You even have an entire mission in downtown labeled "Come Back" when you get the Cruise Bubble. Imagine talking with your friends about your favorite spatulas from Battle for Bikini Bottom.
So what was your favorite spatula to collect in the game? Mine was the Drain the Lake.
Drain the Lake one was pretty decent. It wasn't the best one, though.
What do you mean? Of course it was. It was easily the best one.
No, the best spatula in the game is to come back when you got the Cruise Bubble one.
Going back to the boss fight here, it's a pretty boring experience when you know about the exploits to fight it. But as a casual kid playing the game who probably wouldn't realize these exploits, it's a pretty solid boss fight for a kid to jump into and fight. And as a kid myself, I definitely struggled a bit fighting this boss. But it was not an unfair struggle. It's really solid.
Now while those 2 boss fights were pretty disappointing, the last boss fight here is easily one of my favorite boss fights in any game ever.
The SpongeBob boss fight. This boss fight is so damn perfect. This boss fight is split into 2 different segments. The first one is like the previous 2 with a 9-bar health bar, but this boss easily has more intriguing phases. Like this one where he starts slamming his karate gloves on the platform and saying the word karate to attack you.
Karate!
Then after all that, Robot SpongeBob grows the inflatable arms, and we enter inside SpongeBob's head.
Too weird for me.
Which is literally an entire platform challenge, testing you on everything you learned throughout the game.
This is easily one of my greatest moments in a video game ever. Like, this is how you do a final boss in a platformer. The platforming is the main challenge throughout the entirety of this game. That's why it's called a platformer. So the final boss being an entire platforming challenge is absolutely amazing. And it's so much fun going out through Robot SpongeBob's head and destroying all these robots. It's a lot of fun.
Getting to these fuses requires defeating these enemies that are scattered throughout the SpongeBob robot's head by using different tricks and moves you have been using the entirety of the game. Then you will have to use the Cruise Bubble to hit the Plankton robot here, who also entered the Robot SpongeBob's head. We are at the last 3 fuses, the final 3. Let's get around, hit the Robot Plankton here. Oh man, we're almost there. Hit that final fuse. Game!
to experience as Battle for Bikini Bottom. This game was an absolute thrill to play through, to all the nods and references to the first 3 seasons of SpongeBob, which are personally the best moments in the franchise if you ask me personally, to all the platforming challenges that this game offers for both casual and hardcore gamers alike. This game is absolutely worth the price of admission nowadays. I think the cheapest version you can get out there is the PlayStation 2 version, which sits around $12 to $15. That's still relatively cheap for a game nowadays, and it's absolutely worth it. The graphics hold up amazingly well for a game made in the early 2000s, and the music will make your ears cry of joy. The music tracks are all uniquely done for this game here. The only one that comes from the show is the opening title screen. Oh, who lives in a pineapple under the sea? Yeah, that's the only one you'll see in here. And I think it fits for the title screen. And then just all the tracks, man. Jellyfish Fields, Downtown Bikini Bottom, Rock Bottom, The Dream World.
My god, the Dream World is so amazing on its own. The music is a bop, the world is all about traveling to the other dream bubbles. It's literally like the episode here. Though they missed the opportunity to have Gary talking as the almighty knowledgeable snail that he is in his own dream. But this is still amazing to see as an idea for this game at all. This level could have easily been replaced with another location from the show. But with doing this, it gave them the ability to kind of go out of their way and create more unique levels for the game itself. Like this one right here with Sandy dreaming about Texas. Oil rigs, cows throwing pies, Texas looking like islands. This fits Sandy perfectly. And then Squidward's dream is all about traveling across the sheet of music to get to the top of his nose, with it being scattered with some good notes and quite a bit of bad notes. This is amazing. And then Mr. Krabs. Mr. Krabs is dreaming about the Krusty Krab and all of his money, and it's battle challenge. Okay, this is slightly less enjoyable, but the enemies in this game are actually pretty fun to attack. So it isn't that much less enjoyable this time. And then we get the Patrick. This is the best moment in the entirety of the game for me. You've reached the end of this world, doing all the platforming challenges in these dream bubbles and battle challenges to offer, and then your brain just starts thinking, what could Patrick offer as a challenge? What challenge are you going to be faced with? How about nothing at all? Instead, it is just a vast empty space, where it's just Patrick standing under this simple light. Going and talking to Patrick challenges you to find the golden spatula, in this case, that he is holding. This matches Patrick's thought process and his dreams so wonderfully. And I can't believe this is what they decided to do. They could have easily created a platforming challenge. They could have easily done something like that. But instead, they just put Patrick in this dark, empty space. And you get tossed a free spatula. It is absolutely stupidly wonderful to see. I can't believe that this was actually something in the game. Now, I know that originally there was going to be some sort of platforming challenge, which still would have matched Patrick. It would have been going across ice cream and different kind of desserts, which would have been pretty cool. But this right here is just so much more significant. It's actually amazing.
Now, this game isn't perfect. This game still had a pretty tight budget to stay within, and still also had just as tight a deadline to meet as well.
Like this moment in the Dutchman's graveyard, where you're introduced to the bubble-spitting robot. This is pretty cool to see, but not when the Dream World already showed me who this guy is, where I already had to figure out what to do against him without the helpful introduction video. This really isn't a big deal, but it is something to note. It does work in the first part of the hub, because you aren't able to get to any of the new enemies from the other courses without getting the spatulas required. But with having all 3 parts of the hub having one level accessible without needing a spatula, and adding enemies that you would be introduced to in a different level in that free level there, you're bound to have this happen. And then you have some audio problems. This really isn't something that's a problem in the Xbox and PlayStation 2 version, but on the Gamecube, you get stuff like this where the waterfalls sounding way too close to how it would be in real life.
With this game being on such a tight deadline, this game was bound to have quite a bit of glitches and bugs throughout the entirety of the game, and And that leads to one of the most significant part of Battle for Bikini Bottom's history and legacy, the glitches.
Hey, come get your food. I made burgers.
Okay, I will be there in a second, and I guess it looks like I'm out of time here. The game is a phenomenal experience to play through nowadays. It is such a wonderful game that gives so many nods and references to any SpongeBob fan out there. The game controls wonderfully, the graphics look solid for a 2003 game, and the music is a joy to listen to. This game is easily worth picking up nowadays. Now, excuse me, I need to go and stuff my face into some burgers, guys. Oh, I'm kind of in a weird spot.